What is the scariest situation you've been in and thought I'm not getting out of this alive? Serious. I love to swim in the ocean, and I used to have no fear of swimming out too far, since I'm a very strong swimmer. Last spring, I was at the beach and I saw a sandbar a ways out. I could see the waves breaking, which let me know there was a shallow area, and I decided to swim to it. A friend accompanied me, but about halfway she got nervous and turned back. I was like, see ya, and kept swimming. When I got close to the sandbar I was pretty tired, but I figured it'd be fine. I'd rest there where I could stand, and in a little bit I'd swim back. But the problem was the sandbar was too deep to stand on. I could touch the bottom easily, but the water was a few inches above my nose, so I couldn't rest. I was annoyed, but I didn't think it was a big deal. Until I started swimming back, I was very far out, and I was tired. I wasn't making much progress forward, and the waves were tossing me around. My friends were tiny spots in the distance. I started to panic. I thought, I'm going to drown. I'm going to fucking drown. I've never been scared like that, not before or since. I wanted to cry. My heart was pounding. I was totally exhausted, and because of the adrenaline coursing through me I was paddling way too hard, not getting anywhere. I was having a panic attack in the middle of the goddamn ocean. All of that lasted maybe a minute, not more. Suddenly this thought came through, louder than anything else, do you want to fucking die? And I realized, if I kept doing what I was doing, I would drown. If I kept panicking, I would die. I was 19 at the time, and up until that point I had never seriously faced death. I forced myself to stop swimming and just float for a second. I forced myself to calm the fuck down. Then I started swimming back. More calmly, now, I was not going to die. I was not going to fucking panic and die because I was acting like a reckless goddamn asshole. I honestly think the only thing that kept me alive was how pissed off with myself I was. I was still scared, but I pressed all those feelings down and just swam. And swam. And swam. When I got back to the beach, I completely collapsed. I crawled up the sand until I was far enough out of the surf that the waves wouldn't come up to my face. I was heaving. Best workout of my life, right? Jesus. I don't know how long I had to lay there before I could get up, but while I was down there, the water lapping gently at my legs, I kissed the sand completely sincerely, and developed a healthy fucking fear of the ocean. The same thing happened to me, except it was worse. Me and a buddy decided we were going to swim out to the first orange shipping buoy out past the pier, which was already a few hundred feet out from shore. We swam for a few minutes and got close to it, but was covered in razor-sharp barnacles except for one spot, so we took turns resting. Maybe 5 minutes passed and the sky was getting dark fast. A few moments we both noticed a dull roar that we originally assumed was a passing ship, but it was two goddamn waterspouts, which if you don't know, are tornadoes on the fucking ocean, like 1,000 yards from us. I have no idea if they were moving towards or away, but when we noticed, the water got warm, because we both probably pissed ourselves as we began swimming back to shore as hard as we possibly could. We made it about approximately 100 feet from the shore, when hundreds of little fish around us began to jump out of the water. It was like a wave of fish breaking on top of us. There was a dude fishing ahead of us and he started screaming at us, but we didn't pay much attention because of the fucking tornadoes. We got to shore and apparently there was a big ass shark swimming around us, which caused the fish to panic and jump out of the water. I didn't go back to the beach for a while, stuck on a chairlift on a ski hill, in the middle of a blizzard, 100 feet over a ravine. Was 14 at the time. A storm moved in and they were shutting down the mountain. I begged the lift operator to let me do one more run. He relented and I went up. 5 minutes later the lift stopped moving. Before the whiteout closed in, I could see that I was parked over a rocky ravine, about 100 feet below me. As the minutes ticked by, and then a couple hours, it became clear to me that they'd forgotten all about me. Tongue plummeted, wind picked up and my core temp started dropping. Options were few: raise the bar and fall to my death or stay on the lift and die of hypothermia. I considered crawling up the chair and trying to make it to the cable above, then shimmy to the next tower, then down to safety. That all sounds like an easy, simple choice when you're sitting in your living room. It feels like sure death when you're sitting in the lift. Fortunately, when I didn't return home that night, my parents started calling around and eventually figured out where I was. In the wee hours of the night, I could hear a tracked grooming vehicle going up the mountain. I knew they had to be looking for me. Half an hour later, the lift started moving again and a SAR team met me at the top. Frostbite on the toes of my right foot and both my hands, but lived to tell about it. For a long time there I was absolutely convinced, I'm not getting out of this alive. My husband was out of town, and I woke up to a man standing at the foot of my bed. I thought to myself calmly, so this is how I die. I forgot that I had dragged my elliptical trainer into the bedroom to make room for more shit in the living room. A jacket draped over gym equipment makes for an ominous figure. When I was 17, I decided to house sit for my parents while they were out of town for a month. They have a fairly large house, and it's older, so there are some weird sounds. Also, it's at the end of a long driveway with no super close neighbors. I'm also a very anxious person, so that does not help. Luckily, the family dog stayed with me, and while she's a sweetheart and loves everyone, having a black lab, German Shepherd mix made me feel safe. Anyway, I had been sleeping on the couch in the living room, and the front door was in the room next door, clearly visible from the couch. It was probably 2 a.m., and I woke up suddenly when the dog started to bark. I laid there for a minute, really groggy, and thought I heard some sounds outside. I peek over the couch, and there is a face in the window in the door. I instantly hid back behind the couch, totally freaking out. The phone was in the other room, as was my cell phone. I seriously did not know what to do. The dog was still barking, and I just could not stop panicking. After what felt like forever but was likely just 2 minutes or so, I finally mustered the courage to peek back over the couch. The face was still there. Now, thanks to adrenaline, I'm wide awake, and I realize the face has not moved. This seemed weird, since they obviously would have seen me when I peeked out the first time. So, once again, I talked myself into looking over the couch again. I realized that this is not a face. It is the reflection of a fucking mask that is sitting on the bookcase across from the door. I didn't really sleep well the rest of the night, or week for that matter. Edited for formatting and then again for a stupid spelling error. Edit 2. I've been getting a lot of questions about why the dog was barking, and why I wasn't living at home at 17, so I thought I should just add them here. The dog was likely barking at other dogs, or maybe some deer or coyotes. My parents live away from the town, and so it's common to have some wildlife running around. I imagine that's probably why her barking sounded so defensive too. As for why I wasn't living at home at 17, I was born during a month that my parents could decide to either hold me back from starting school for a year, or start me early. They decided to let me start early, and therefore I was still a few months away from 18 when I went off to college. I got caught in an avalanche while skiing in Colorado once. I was completely buried by the snow, so much so that it was like I was being suspended in the middle of the air. I couldn't even tell which way was up, mind you. I was around 7 at the time, so I didn't know the spit trick, and began shouting for help. I wasn't even sure if anyone could hear me, but I just continually shouted my head off, hoping someone would be able to come rescue me. After a little while, I started to believe that this was how I die, stuck in a giant snowball. I was stuck for a good 5 to 10 minutes before I heard a search team treading through the snow. Their dogs must have picked up my scent or something, but I heard barking, and then the digging away of snow. Then, a foot brushed up against my boot, then my whole body was being forcibly pulled. The sun was blinding, and the world was spinning, as apparently I was facing downwards, so I got quite the head rush. I had never been so happy to see the sun before in my life. It was actually around 3 a.m. one night last week. I woke up to pounding on my front door, and then I heard someone fiddling with the doorknob, then more pounding on my front windows. I was sleeping in the living room back of the house, and I got up to stand in a corner where no one would be able to see me. I don't know why, I guess I was just scared and that was my reaction. Then I heard pounding on my living room windows, which look right into where I sleep. Some noise on the back deck, and then nothing. I'm a single woman living alone in a giant 4-bedroom house in a shitty neighborhood. So yeah, I'm not sleeping too well lately. I was in a school shooting. I was heading downstairs when it all happened. My school connected to the metro and the street, and my locker was on the metro level. The guy came in through the street exit, so I got down maybe a flight and a half of stairs before being met by a herd of screaming students. I had no idea what was happening, but I could heart firecrackers. I figured somebody was being a moron, but I was stuck in the mob and got swept back up to the 4th floor. It was between classes, so rooms were emptying everywhere, only nobody up there had heard anything. I somehow got pulled into an office with another student and a teacher. We locked the door and got under the desk when we heard more screams. The teacher was already in hysterics. She grabbed us, as it turned out, and was on the phone blubbering. I guess I should be thankful, but she spent the next 40 minutes yelling about her son and saying the shooter was an ex-student of hers. Hiding was apparently not her strong suit. I sat under a desk and played my DS, quietly waiting for this guy to come kill her and us who'd been unfortunate enough to get caught up in her guilt. I could hear the shots getting closer and students screaming and moaning. I was absolutely sure I was about to die, and I didn't have any minutes left on my prepaid phone to even call my mom to say goodbye. So I played Mario to numb myself as I heard shot after shot. They sounded closer and it felt like hours until we heard heavy footsteps outside the door. Whoever it was hesitated. I kept playing. I heard murmurs and then thud thud thud. It's the police. Stand away from the door. They evacuated us, and it turned out the guy was just some random asshole and we'd never been a target any more than anybody else. He hadn't made it nearly as far as it sounded, and the whole ordeal had lasted maybe 15 minutes because the cops had been on the scene to bust potheads. I hope that woman's son was okay, but Jesus Christ, if you are ever an authority in a crisis, keep it the fuck together. Edit. I literally wrote this on my phone last night while downing a cider, so here's a link now that I have my laptop. Dawson College shooting. I'm trying to answer stuff, but I'm on my 15 at work. I'll answer more later if anybody is interested.